This Mayan revival home, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright Jr., the son of the legendary architect Frank Lloyd Wright, towers over Franklin Avenue at the bottom of the Los Feliz foothills. While its unique architectural character is certainly noteworthy, arguably the most interesting thing about the home isn't necessarily the block-style facade, which was inspired by the menacing yet beguiling opening of a cave or an ancient tomb. After it was built in 1926 for photographer John Sowden and his young family, the house enjoyed years of hosting bohemian parties for Hollywood's in crowd. But when Dr. George Hodel moved into the house in 1945, its fate as the potential crime scene of America's most notorious cold case, the Black Dahlia, was sealed. Though the murder of Elizabeth Short remains unsolved to this day, by 1950, Dr. George Hodel became one of the prime suspects in her tragic case, and many true crime buffs are convinced that he carried out the crime right inside this iconic Los Feliz mansion. The home also went through a few stages of abandonment in the late 20th century, making it even more mysterious and spooky to passers-by. According to Steve Hodel, former occupant, retired LAPD investigator, and son of Dr. Hodel, several onlookers have noted its haunting trappings. According to Steve, in the 1970s, the Hodel housekeeper returned to the Sowden house and informed the then current owner, "This is a house of evil." And on another occasion, Edmund Teskey pointed to the house saying, "It's an evil place. Artists, philosophers, accountants, and politicians all played and paid there. Murders happened there. It's an evil place." During the same era, Dr. Hodel's daughter Tamar went inside the home and claimed to see the spirit of a young woman in the basement. Years later, in 2016, Ghost Adventures host Zach Bagans investigated the Sowden house with Tamar's daughter Fauna, who claimed to see the exact same spirit her mother did. Starting strong with a very scary house, the Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, which is known to be one of the most haunted places in America due to its tragic history and links to a wealthy beer baron. Adam Johann Lemp, a German immigrant, was the first person to produce and sell lager-style beer in the U.S. He stored the barrels in an underground cave system beneath the city to keep them cool pre-modern refrigeration. It was successful, but his son, William Lemp, is the one who really brought it to the next level. In the 1860s, William Lemp wanted to live closer to the industrial plant and start a family with his wife Julia. So they built the foreboding home in the historic Benton Park neighborhood right over the cave system. We smell a haunting. Everything seemed to take a turn for the worse in the new millennium, and William Lemp died by suicide in 1904 after his favorite of 5 sons, Frederick, died tragically due to complications of tuberculosis. A few years later, his wife also died of cancer in the house. In 1920, the youngest daughter, Elsa Lemp, mysteriously died in her home, not the Lemp Mansion. Then, in 1922, after running the company for years and seeing it flounder during the Prohibition era, William Lemp Jr. shot himself in the same room William Sr. died in. One of William Jr.'s brothers, Charles Lemp, lived in the home from the 1930s until 1949, when he shot his own dog in the basement of the home before dying by suicide in his room. That same year, the youngest surviving Lemp child, Edwin, sold the house and transformed it into a boarding house, where reports of hauntings began. According to Destination America, witnesses have experienced burning sensations, slamming doors, disembodied moaning and crying, amongst other things. Today, the Lemp Mansion is a restaurant and inn that also holds events including weddings, murder mystery dinners, and even ghost hunting experiences. I just bought my first house. I was in the house all weekend cleaning, scrubbing floors, raking leaves, and getting it move-in ready. I left Sunday night around 4:30 p.m. with the whole place in pristine condition. On Monday, at 8 a.m., my movers arrived to my apartment to load up everything to move to the new house. I took some personal items and headed over for a drop-off by myself. I entered the house and rushed upstairs, taking toiletries to the bathroom. On my way down, I began realizing that I could smell an awful smell that was like a mix of urine and cigarettes. When I left the house on Sunday, the entire house smelled like Clorox. I knew something was wrong. I realized someone had been in the house the night before, after I EF'd from a long day of cleaning. I thought to check upstairs while I was up there for trash or damages, so I took a moment to check all the upstairs rooms and closets. As I went back downstairs, I then realized my living room window had been pushed in from the top and was hanging off the windowsill. At that moment, I decided to go back outside and call the cops. I walked down the hall to the back door, into the garage where I came in. I saw light coming from under the basement door, under the stairs. I opened it and called down, "Is anyone down there?" Silence. I repeated it. No response. I looked down deeper at a different angel and saw a leg scurry out of my viewpoint. I slammed the door shut and barricaded it by using the adjacent back entrance door, opening it so it blocks the basement door from opening. Then I heard someone barreling up the stairs and aggressively trying to get through the door. We had a push and shove and he was cursing and threatening me. I got my phone out to call the cops. I fought the door back and forth with him, going from threatening to begging to reasoning, etc. But I was terrified and I wasn't listening to a word. All I cared about was making sure this person did not get through that door. The cops arrived, took over. I went out to my car while they did whatever they were doing with him. 20 minutes later or so, they came out and I finally saw what the guy looks like, someone who hasn't seen a sober day in 10 years probably. He cussed at me as they walked him to the car. The next 2 hours were spent with the cops taking evidence all over the house: cigarette butts, heroin in the basement, handprints on all the windows, assessing damages, etc., and asking questions. While all this was going on, I checked my mail, and there was a note on top of my mailbox addressed to someone named Jamie about how to get into the house. It threw us all off that we have the same name, and we all thought it was addressed to me at first, but then we realized it was a coincidence. After 2 hours, the cops took all the evidence and I was alone in the house again. My realtor asked me to take some pictures of the basement situation. Reluctantly, I went down there. As I was taking pictures, I saw something in the corner of my eye. It was a hand sliding into the shadows underneath the furnace. I ran up the stairs, barricaded the door, and called the police again. They came and arrested the second person, who was hiding in my basement in a very small, seemingly impossible gap between the furnace and wall. This person turned out to be female. My mind never thought or cared about whether they were male or female, strong or weak, or someone I could overpower. I never saw them at all, other than quick glimpses of body parts in shadows, at least not until they were arrested. All I could think about is the fact that there are intruders in my home, and I didn't know who or why, so all I cared about was making sure they did not get through that door. The two people that invaded my house are John and Jamie, both with a criminal history. Both have been charged with burglary, criminal mischief, and bail and probation violations, as well as destruction of property. I now understand why they were there, and likely could have been harmless, as many people love to tell me, and that they were just looking for an empty place to get high and do what they do. But that doesn't erase the fear and traumatic experience of realizing you are not alone in your home and having someone violently fight you through a door and threaten you that you cannot see. If there is one place you should always feel safe, it's in your home. We had to move for my husband's new job. It was a 2-hour drive there and 2 more back from where we lived. I was off work for medical leave and drove him, so in total it was 4 hours of driving a day for me. We had 3 months left in our lease, $2,500 a month, and the new place we found was $1,900 a month. Our landlord let us leave and looked for new renters immediately, saying that we had to pay the rent, but if they found someone sooner than 3 months, we could break the lease with no problem. We were super hard-pressed for money, so my husband took out a $2,000 loan for the security deposit on the new place, and we started moving some boxes in before our move-in date with the new landlord's permission. Then, 1 week before the official move, someone broke into the new place and stole nearly everything. My stepson's school laptop, his new winter jacket, school backpack. What got me, and I know it's just games, but my entire collection of video games was taken. I have a lot of memories with those games, and some were very pricey, as they were no longer produced upwards of several $100s for a single game, and I had dozens. There was a huge footprint on the front door, a large rock in the kitchen, and a knife left in the opened garage. Police took a report and never gave us a copy after multiple asks for our renter's insurance. Asked if we wanted an investigation. We said yes, they did absolutely nothing and wouldn't return our calls, and that was that. The landlords accused us of having someone stage the break-in to get out of the lease because the place had so many issues they didn't disclose, and they said we had to pay the entire year's rent because of the lease, even though we hadn't lived there a single day and wouldn't stay there since I didn't feel safe. When we brought up the multiple health and safety violations, they dropped the lease but refused to give us the deposit back. We ended up finding another place, had to take out another loan for the deposit there, and unfortunately had to pay for the new apartment $1,750 as well as the old one $2,500. We racked up so much debt because I had to put all gas food costs on credit cards for almost a full year. My absolutely amazing mother helped us whenever she could. We owe her so much, and she doesn't want anything in return but for us to find some stress relief. A year after this absolute disaster, we had to file for bankruptcy, and we're working with an awesome lawyer who has been so kind and understanding. But really, thank you, Mom. You've saved us so many times. In 2011, LaToya Ammons moved into a small single-story home in Gary, Indiana, with her mother and her 3 young children. Only a few short months later, after reportedly experiencing the worst residential demon infestation since the Amityville Horror, Ammons brought her family to the emergency room in an attempt to help free them of demonic possession. After extensive evaluations by police, members of the local church, hospital staff, and the Department of Child Protective Services, the witnesses were torn. Half of them believed the house was infested by spirits and demons, and that the family was genuinely possessed by something paranormal, while the other half blamed psychological issues. Just like the best-selling book about the Amityville house turned into a national sensation, this modern instance of demonic possession went viral. The good news is that the Ammons family was able to find peace when they moved to Indianapolis, but the story, and the house itself, were still getting tons of attention. Ghost Adventure host and paranormal investigator Zach Bagans bought the property from Ammons' landlord in 2014 to shoot pseudo-documentary footage inside. Even though Bagans proceeded to tear it down, the Ammons house is about to get even more press. Oscar nominee Lee Daniels is directing a film based on the story, The Deliverance. In 1886, an eccentric widow left her home in Connecticut for California's rural Santa Clara Valley to start a new life after the tragic loss of several family members. She wasn't the average widow. She was Sarah Winchester, the millionaire heiress whose fortune was derived from the gun that won the West, an increasingly controversial truth. Once in the Bay Area during the height of spiritualism, and well before the 19th Amendment, Winchester managed her own finances and acted on a passion for architecture and design by overseeing the never-ending construction project of a rambling mansion in San Jose. She named the rambling property Llanada Villa, which she interpreted as House on Flat Land, but today it's better known as the Winchester Mystery House. Her reclusive lifestyle, along with the restrictive gender norms of the era and the blood money she was associated with, caused neighbors and the local press to speculate, and legends quickly began to swirl about the mysterious woman and her bewildering house. Though it was a modern marvel at the time with indoor plumbing, multiple elevators, a hot shower, and central heating, the mansion was appraised as having no value due to doors that opened to nothing but thin air, staircases that lead straight into the ceiling, and its maze of labyrinthine hallways. Legends began swirling, speculating that Winchester's bizarre architectural choices were an attempt to rid the home of unwelcome spirits of the dead killed by the Winchester rifle, but defenders swear she didn't have a superstitious bone in her body. Regardless, it's possible that Winchester herself still haunts the halls of the house-turned-museum today. Los Angeles is one of the best destinations for haunted house hunting, and this Bavarian-style home in Beverly Hills has a particularly gruesome history. In 1932, it was home to the iconic actress Jean Harlow, and her abusive husband Paul Byrne, who shot himself in the head while standing in front of the mirror. Their butler discovered him and called MGM instead of the police, so there were tons of rumors that it wasn't actually suicide. Many suspected Byrne's ex-girlfriend, a suspicion exacerbated by her jumping off a boat to her death a couple of days later. Gene moved out after his death, but died only a few years later at the age of 26. It gets creepier. In 1963, celebrity hairstylist Jay Sebring bought the home and lived there with his girlfriend Sharon Tate until she left him for Roman Polanski. They were still friends and remained so until both of them were murdered by the Charles Manson cult. Tate was the same age as Harlow when she passed. But back to when the couple lived in the Harlow house. Tate told several friends of creepy occurrences in the home and even mentioned it in interviews. For example, once, when she was sleeping in the master bedroom alone, she saw a creepy little man. Her friends say she believed it to be Paul Byrne's ghost. She was so freaked out when she saw the alleged ghost that she ran out of the room and then saw a hanging shadowy corpse with its throat slit in the hallway.